Erectile dysfunction is a very common condition that affects many men. In today's show, we're going to talk about the 7 things that you can do right now after watching this video to improve the quality of your erections and quality of your sex life and your intimate relationships. It's sad, but about 10 to 20% of men in their 40s experience some degree of erectile dysfunction, and the prevalence of this only increases up to like 50 or 60% in men over 70. So this common condition, it turns out, is intimately linked with the health of your cardiovascular system. That is to say that erectile dysfunction is a symptom of underlying cardiovascular disease. It's been known for at least 20 years that erectile dysfunction and the damage in the penis arterioles and the vessels of the penis are linked with ischemic heart disease and cardiovascular disease. There was a researcher known as Montessori et al. Who explained this over 20 years ago, and now we have a large dossier of literature finding that not only cardiovascular health, but poor cardiometabolic health, that is insulin resistance, including, as well as insulin resistance, increased belly fat, high blood pressure or hypertension, increased triglycerides, low HDL cholesterol, all of the factors that are so common now in most adult men are predisposing them to not only cardiovascular disease, but the symptom of cardiovascular disease that we're talking about today, known as erectile dysfunction. So it turns out that if you do experience erectile dysfunction, it could be a blessing in one way, because it could indicate future risk for something much more serious than just sexual dysfunction, and that is death from heart disease. So if you follow the steps that we're going to talk about today, not only will you improve your sex life, but you might reduce your risk of developing long-term cardiovascular disease, as well as cerebrovascular disease, like having a stroke or having a heart attack, which is much more serious than just the inability to perform in the bedroom, as embarrassing as that may be. But we're going to talk about the physiologic relevance of erectile dysfunction. We're not really going to talk about the psychological elements here, because various research shows that psychological issues, depression, anxiety, performance anxiety can affect indirectly erection function. But we're going to talk more about improving the health of the vessels that supply blood to the penis and make an erection and make sexual interactions much more enjoyable for both you and your partner. So there's a paper titled "Erectile Dysfunction is a Hallmark of Cardiovascular Disease, Unavoidable Matter of Fact, or an Opportunity to Improve Men's Health." And again, so the things that we're going to talk about today, like going in the sauna, like exercising, like reducing your blood pressure, like reducing visceral fat and belly fat, all these things can help with cardiovascular disease prevention as well, not just performance in the bedroom. So I think it's really important for people to recognize this. But it turns out, because I've been working with clients for the past almost 20 years now, since 2006, many of my male clients suffer from some degree of erectile dysfunction. I find through discovery. We're talking all things health, when we do these calls and these conversations. And this is not the primary reason why they reach out to me, but through our discovery calls, they have issues in the bedroom. And part of these issues are linked with their metabolic health challenges. So I think this is why you should take this very seriously. If you periodically suffer from performance issues and you kind of mask that with Cialis or Viagra, again, the ED, the erectile dysfunction, is a symptom of cardiovascular disease. So that's what we're trying to optimize and improve here. And if you're just taking Viagra or Cialis on the weekends because you're going to be with your wife or your partner, again, you're putting a Band-Aid on something that is much larger. So it's very important that you understand what is going on here from a cardiometabolic dysfunction standpoint and start to address those issues. Okay, so this occurs even in men in their 20s. This was an article titled "Prevalence of Sexual Dysfunction and Pursuit of Sexual Medicine, Evaluation Among Male Physicians, a Survey." The average age of this 235 survey in male physicians was 36 years old, and about 17% of them admitted that they suffer from some degree of erectile dysfunction. So this is really common. I think another reason why this is common is many men are consuming porn. And porn has been shown to increase prolactin and various hormones in the brain that actually cause erectile dysfunction. So we're not really going to talk much more about porn henceforth, but if you're consuming porn, that's just bad. I think it's micro cheating if you're in a relationship, if you're married or if you have a girlfriend. It's not a good habit to get into. And it's going to compromise your quality of your sexual interactions with that person, that partner, as well as your brain, which is bad news. And so studies have actually shown that there's a correlation with porn consumption and quality of erections, which is bad. There's also evidence to find that use of SSRIs, as you know, they're the acronym SSRI is a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. These are commonly prescribed for depression and anxiety. And there's a lot of complications as a side effect of these medications conditions that are linked with sexual dysfunction. This was a paper published in the Annals of General Psychiatry, estimating the risk of irreversible post-SSRI sexual dysfunction due to serotonergic antidepressants. So if you suffer from anxiety or depression, which, by the way, is a risk factor for cardiovascular disease, and we know that erectile dysfunction is a symptom of cardiovascular disease, it makes sense that there's a co-occurrence with anxiety, depression, ED, as well as cardiovascular disease. So all the things that we're going to talk about today, like losing belly fat, improving your metabolic health, and going in the sauna and sleeping well and reversing sleep disorder breathing and so forth, will improve your mood as well. So you may not need to depend upon pharmacologic management of depression and can focus on addressing the root cause, which can help your sexual performance as well as your sexual health. Now, we're going to continue and talk about why cardiometabolic disease risk factors like waist circumference, like belly fat, like increased triglycerides and low HDL cholesterol are so problematic of erectile quality and sexual performance. But first, I just want to say thank you for being here, my friends. Hopefully you're getting value from this conversation and these studies. If you are, please subscribe to the channel and hit that like button and leave a comment below. That goes a long way to help the algorithm so that people like you can get this beneficial content. Now, we're going to talk a lot about cardiometabolic health. This is really important for whole body health, but specifically erectile health and sexual performance. A tool that you may not be familiar with, although it's been shown to be very effective, is known as berberine fasting accelerator by Myoscience. Berberine has been used for over 3,000 years in traditional Chinese medicine. This herb has been shown to help curb food cravings and improve metabolic health. It also increases your body's level of ketones, helping to make your fasting sessions a little bit more manageable and palatable. So if you're like me and you suffer from cravings at night, like you might want to have a little ice cream after dinner or a little cookie or some sweets or maybe even alcohol, you might want to check out the berberine fasting accelerator and use 2 to 3 capsules in the evening time to help better manage those irresistible cravings for some of the junk food that will increase your waist circumference and compromise the quality of your sexual performance as well as cardiometabolic disease risk. So you can save using the code podcast over at myoscience.com. So getting back to metabolic health, it turns out, and this was a recently published paper on the 20th of December, 2023, titled Association Between Cardiometabolic Index and Erectile Dysfunction Among U.S. Adults, a cross-sectional analysis of the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey between 2001 and 2004. The scientists found that there's a strong link between cardiometabolic risk factors and erectile dysfunction. So again, ED is a symptom of underlying cardiovascular disease. I'm going to say that multiple times, but I think that's the take home here. So when you think about improving the quality of your sex life, you're also helping your sexual performance, but you're reducing your risk of future complications from cardiovascular disease. So the ED is the smoke, the fire is underlying cardiovascular disease. The scientists say that triglycerides, that is high triglycerides, HDL cholesterol, as well as a high waist-hip ratio is strongly tethered to erectile dysfunction. So again, taking Cialis or Viagra is not going to improve your metabolic health. That is just a symptom. And I've worked with clients over the years who said, you know what, when I first tried Viagra or Cialis, it worked, but then it stopped working because they didn't address the root cause. And that's really what we're focusing on now. For more information, should you be not really convinced by that last paper, there was another paper published on the 5th of December in 2023 titled Correlation Between Visceral Fat Metabolism Score and Erectile Dysfunction. This is, again, another cross-sectional analysis from the NHANES dataset. And as you can see from figure 2 of this paper, there is a progressive and linear correlation with metabolic syndrome characteristics. That is increased waist circumference, high blood pressure, impaired fasting glucose levels and fasting insulin levels, as well as blood pressure and low HDL cholesterol. These factors are tethered to erectile dysfunction. So if you want to improve the quality of your sex life and your interactions with your partner, you need to become metabolically healthy. And that's where we're going here. So what is the correlation here with visceral adiposity or belly fat and erectile dysfunction? Well, it turns out that visceral fat or belly fat is an independent risk factor for erectile dysfunction. For every 1 centimeter increase in waist circumference, there's a 3% increased frequency in erectile dysfunction. Now, evidence suggests that if you lose belly fat, you improve the quality of your sex life. You also reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease. So that's really important. Now, what about being hypertensive or having high blood pressure? Well, it turns out that if you have high blood pressure, you have a 54 to a 74% increased risk of having erectile dysfunction. So literally, you almost double the risk of having erectile dysfunction by just having high blood pressure. What about poor metabolic health? Well, it turns out that the odds ratio of having erectile dysfunction if you have diabetes is 2.08. That means you have a 100% greater risk of developing erectile dysfunction and having sexual performance issues if you have diabetes. So think about that next time you go to Chick-fil-A, or next time someone offers you a soda or some fried foods or any other hyperpalatable processed food like pastries, donuts, cookies, all these sugar sweetened beverages and baked goods. They are compromising your ability to perform in the bedroom, in addition to also increasing your cardiovascular risk factors. So that's a problem, my friends. In fact, the odds ratio range in terms of the association with diabetes and erectile dysfunction ranges from 2.08 up to 3.62, meaning you have a 108% greater risk of developing erectile dysfunction if you have diabetes, up to a 262% increased risk. So the risk is high. It's just not worth it. Having the junk food, that short-term gratification of having sugar and sugar-sweetened beverages is not worth, the juice is not worth the squeeze, my friends, especially if you're married or in a long-term relationship, because we know intimacy is really important for maintaining relationships. And if you can't perform, you can't be intimate, and that's a problem. Okay, so what about being physically inactive? We talked about the problems with waist circumference, high blood pressure, diabetes. Physical inactivity increases the risk of having erectile dysfunction by up to 20%. So just by exercising, by decreasing your blood pressure, by reversing diabetes, you can dramatically reduce the odds of having erectile dysfunction and improve the quality of your sex life, and also reduce your risk of long-term cardiometabolic disease. So it turns out that moderate to intense physical activity is strongly tethered to having better quality erections and also reduced risk of cardiovascular disease. It turns out that physical exercise has the potential to empower endothelial nitric oxide synthase activity and also decrease oxidative stress and improve the circulation of progenitor stem cells that can help with the quality of your erection. So that's really important. So improving blood sugar health comes top of mind when we talk about summarizing the 7 things that you can do right now. So where do you start? Well, you want to improve your blood sugar health. And so how do you do that? Well, you stop eating the hyperpalatable, ultra-processed junk foods. So sugar-sweetened beverages are number 1. Baked goods, cookies, crackers, cakes, pastries, all those things are loaded with processed carbs, are problematic for metabolic health and the health of your cardiovascular system, including the health of your penile tissue. So that's bad news, bears. You want to stop eating those things. Practice early time-restricted feeding. So intermittent fasting gets a lot of airtime. We hear all about intermittent fasting and so forth, but a subset or subtype of intermittent fasting that is arguably a little bit more sensitive and specific and time-bound is known as early time-restricted feeding. So the best window, I think, for most people, if you have a normal day job working 9 to 5, so to speak, is eating between the hours of 10 a.m. and stop eating at 6 p.m. And so this is really helpful for a lot of people. It's an 8-hour window. Most people can do this, even if you exercise and want to build muscle and all that. A great window in that ballpark. It might expand a little bit as the summer months come along and the days are much longer. Maybe it's 10 to 8 or 10 to 7, something in that range. But early time-restricted feeding has been shown to improve fasting glucose and insulin and even support high blood pressure. So that's really important. Losing belly fat specifically comes top of mind, and we've just shared with you ample data to suggest that belly fat is a problem. So how do you lose belly fat? High intensity interval training, prioritizing protein, and specifically I think walking after meals is a great strategy to help to improve reduce visceral fat and improve obviously metabolic health. So part of the problem with eating is in the post-meal window, you get the surge in both glucose and insulin as well as fats. And that surge in glucose and insulin can actually initiate the dysfunction in the endothelial cells and can cause endothelial dysfunction. So if you were to take 2 people, one eats a McDonald's milkshake and French fries and cheeseburger, another person eats that same meal, but this person A doesn't go for a walk, person B goes for a walk, person B is going to experience less endothelial dysfunction in the post-meal window, even after eating a bunch of junk food. So making a habit of going for a 10 to 15 minute walk, especially after you eat a major meal, is a phenomenal strategy to not only support the health of your systemic vascular system, but also help support erectile function as well. So that's really important. We talked about eating earlier in the day and not snacking before bedtime. That really helps to reduce belly fat and waist circumference, which is really helpful. Let's talk about sleep. Sleep is, I think, top of mind for a lot of folks. Many of the men that I work with that admit that they have some degree of erectile dysfunction and they depend upon Viagra and Cialis for sexual interactions. They admit that they're mouth breathers. They admit that their partner wakes them up in the middle of the night and says, "Hey, baby, stop snoring," and things like that. So if that's you and you haven't yet done a sleep study, you might want to consider a sleep study to see if you have sleep apnea or if you're just a mouth breather and have some degree of sleep disorder breathing. If you are on the spectrum where you just have a little bit of sleep disorder breathing and you tend to mouth breathe, you can start by trying mouth taping. There's all kinds of commercial products out there that can help. I like to just use the 3M micropore tape that's found at pretty much any major drugstore in America. The company is 3M. It's the blue micropore tape. Unfortunately, with inflation, this stuff is now like $13. You used to pay like $6 at the store. It's doubled in price, but I think it's worth its weight in gold by helping to optimize your sleep quality, because it turns out that if you're mouth breathing, you're not getting into deep REM sleep, because when you're in REM sleep and dreaming and so forth, there's this inhibition of your muscular contractions. And if you're breathing through your mouth, that can cause your tongue to collapse your airway. And then that causes sleep disorder breathing and all that. Because REM sleep, it turns out, is really important for random nocturnal erections. And the frequency of your random nocturnal erections are linked with the quality of your erections during performance. And so if you're getting interrupted REM sleep and you're not remembering your dreams and you have you wake up and you think, I didn't even dream last night, it's probably because your REM sleep was being interrupted. And so it's important to ensure that you're not breathing through your mouth when you're sleeping, and that's where mouth tape comes in. So that's really important. Exercise, we talked about earlier how people who exercise have a 20% decreased risk in erectile dysfunction, which is significant. So I think it's important to, again, walk after meals, do some zone 2 training on the weekends, walks with your partner, walks with your children, hikes, exercise like that is really important. But focusing on weight training 3 to 4 days per week, that is very helpful. Trying to hit every major muscle group weekly. If you need some help with your lower body exercises, these are particularly important for preventing peripheral arterial disease, PAD, squats, deadlifts, lunges, hip thrusts, all that, really important. So you can check out over at courses.highintensityhealth.com. We have an excellent lower body glute masterclass with Erica Grisanti. So that's really important. Now, what about micronutrients? We're going to talk about penis pumps, gains waves, Cialis, Viagra in just a moment. Micronutrients can be very helpful. Various studies show that zinc insufficiency is tethered to low testosterone. So that's really important, that if you're exercising, if you go in the sauna, you know that you can excrete zinc in your sweat. As important as sweating is, this is one of the trace minerals that is lost in sweat. So optimize zinc between 50 to 75 milligrams per day, short-term, and then long-term maintenance, 30 to 50 milligrams is helpful. Glandular therapy might be helpful as well. So bovine testicular extract has been helpful for my clients. The Morning Wood product over at Myoscience is something that we formulated that includes both zinc as well as ashwagandha, and the bovine testicular extract have received a lot of great feedback from men in this realm. If you're interested, just wanted to share that with you. I'll put the links in the description below. Compounds that decrease sex hormone binding globulin, known as SHGB. So some men have high testosterone, high free testosterone, but they also have it bound up by SHGB. Part of that could be underlying metabolic health issues. It turns out that insulin resistance can increase SHGB in men and decrease it in women. So you want to improve your metabolic health, as we already talked about. There's herbs like Tunga Ali and Long Jack and things like that may reduce SHGB. To be honest, over the years, I haven't found those to be very effective. If you have found that to be effective, that's great. I haven't seen that in a large swath of the individuals that I've worked with. In contrast, the most effective thing that I found for naturally improving testosterone would be the combination of DHEA as well as bovine testicular extract. That seems to work really well for a lot of men, especially over 35 or 40. So those are the micronutrients that might be helpful. Myo-inositol could be another tool. That's been shown to be helpful in women with PCOS, but it's also been shown to be helpful in men with insulin resistance. So you might want to consider that as well. Finishing off on more specific modalities after you've addressed the root cause of losing belly fat, decreasing blood pressure, improving metabolic health, sleep, and exercise are penis pumps, Cialis, Viagra, and gains wave therapy. I'll start out with the latter, their gains wave therapy. It turns out that Gainswave therapy is a tool based upon an intervention that has been used to break up kidney stones. And this shockwave treatment, when applied to the penis, may help with the synthesis of stem cells and regeneration of stem cells within the penile tissue. And so this can be used. I've worked with a lot of clients over the years who have benefited from this. I have many doctor friends who do Gainswave therapy in their practice and find good benefit with that. The downside is it is expensive. It's invasive. You have a technician down there with this tool. So the Gainswave therapy can be a tool that can be helpful. We did a video back in 2017 with my friend, Dr. Catherine Metzler. I will link that there if you want to learn a little bit more about that. Other tools, I haven't dabbled with these: penis pumps, Cialis, Viagra. These are things that have evidence behind them, something that I might look at in the future. Cialis, I thought this was quite interesting. Dr. Peter Attia did a podcast with a urologist out of Baylor University, I believe, finding that long-term Cialis treatment in men over 40 might prevent future erectile dysfunction. So that's something to consider for those of you that are interested in more pharmacological approaches. I tend to lean more towards natural therapies, but that's quite interesting. And there was just a paper today, the anabolic doc, Dr. Tom O'Connor, published a thing on Instagram finding that long-term use of Viagra and Cialis may reduce cardiovascular disease in individuals. So I don't know. That's something that maybe down the road at 50 or 60 I might consider, but just know that data is out there. There's also data on penis pumps as a way to hormetically improve circulation in the penis. Not something that I've dabbled with, but something that you could consider. Several of my male clients actually report that they use this in the shower. Again, I don't know much about it, but that's something to consider as well. Now, last but not least, let's talk about sauna therapy. This is probably my favorite tool for just optimizing whole body health, relaxation, stress reduction, detoxification, but specifically improving microcirculation. So the sauna, as we've talked about many times on this podcast, I'm a huge fan of sauna therapy. I built a finished sauna in my backyard. I just love this stuff. We talk about the importance of using just a sauna blanket, anything to get hot on purpose. Sauna, it turns out, is an exercise mimetic. And by mimicking the effect of exercise, it improves blood flow and circulation and microcirculation. So if you suffer from ED or you have all the risk factors like we talked about, high blood pressure, increased waist circumference, all that, you need to go in the sauna. Sauna is probably one of the top things, in addition to losing belly fat and exercising, that you can do to improve your sexual performance. And so I highly encourage this as just a prophylactic for everyone for longevity. And as a side benefit, it might help with sexual performance and sexual function. So get in the sauna, get hot on purpose, get a sauna blanket, get an infrared sauna, enroll or go to a gym that has a sauna. This can be a great tool because you're improving blood flow, which is phenomenal. So friends, those are the 7 different things that I would suggest for all of you, even start in your 20s, to optimize long-term sexual health as well as decrease the risk of developing future cardiovascular disease. Hopefully you found this information helpful. I appreciate your likes, your comments, your shares. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and we will catch you on a future episode down the road.